For centuries, Latin America endured colonial rule with a quest for freedom-born pride. Spanish and Portuguese rule brought harsh taxes and forced labor that sparked anger among locals. The Enlightenment ideas of liberty and equality inspired Latin American leaders to challenge colonial rule. Napoleonic wars weakened colonial powers that gives Latin America a chance for independence. Local elites felt sidelined by colonial rulers, fueling a desire for self-rule. Strict social classes caused unrest among indigenous and mixed-race groups. Other nations like the US and Britain helped Latin America weakening colonial control. Before the Latin America gained independence, they experienced a series of revolts and uprisings. In the early 20th century, Latin America fought for freedom to reshape their future. So in the map, this is America look like at around the year 1750. As what you see, most of a part was divided as colonies by a bunch of European powers. Most prominent is Spain. You also see significant control by Portuguese, French also, and the British have control. As we fast forward, we're going to see dramatic change of Latin America. So what we know, Latin America experienced series of revolts before they gained independence. The first revolt in Latin America was led by Toussaint Louverture, who led the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution, which began in 1791, was a significant event in history of Latin America, resulted in the first successful slave revolt that led independence of Haiti. So Haitian Revolution culminated the defeat of French forces, and it gives abolition of slavery in Haiti and the establishment of Haiti as the first independent black republic in Western Hemisphere. In 1810, Mexico too experienced a revolt. Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla was like a spark that ignited a fire for independence in Mexico. As a priest, he saw how unfairly the Spanish rulers treated the Mexican people. He believed that Mexico should be free from this control and that everyone, no matter their background, should have equal rights. In 1810, he made a famous speech called Grito de Dolores, urging Mexicans to fight for their freedom. This marked the start of the Mexican War of Independence. Hidalgo's message was not just about getting rid of Spanish rule, but also about making Mexico as a fairer place. He wanted to end slavery and make sure poor people get a fair share of land. His ideas inspired many Mexicans to join the fight for independence, including farmers, indigenous people, and mixed-race individuals. Even though Hidalgo was captured and killed by Spanish forces in 1811, his vision lived on. His effort paved the way of Mexico finally gained independence in 1821. Miguel Hidalgo is remembered as a hero who dreamed for a better Mexico for everyone. Next on is Simon Bolivar, often called the George Washington of Latin America, was born into a wealthy Venezuelan family. He was inspired by Enlightenment ideas and made a solemn promise in 1805 to free his people from Spanish control while witnessing Napoleon's coronation in Rome. After returning to South America, Bolivar led the fight for independence in Venezuela and other northern parts of the continent, although hailed as the liberator of Venezuela in 1813. It was not until 1821 that he finally defeated the Spanish forces there. Then he went on to free Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. In 1819, Bolivar became the president of Venezuela, which was part of Federation of Colombia and Ecuador. He understood the challenges of establishing stable government in Latin America. Bolivar's efforts to liberate Northern South America from Spanish rule laid the foundation for many independent nations in the region. His story shows us the struggle and triumph of fighting for freedom and shaping a new era in Latin America history. Jose de San Martin, focused on freeing the southern part of South America, was born in Argentina to a Spanish army officer. He even served in the Spanish army himself for 22 years. But when he heard about the liberation movement in Argentina in 1811, he left his military career in Spain and went back to his homeland. San, San Martin believed that all of South America needed to be free from Spanish rule for any nation to be truly be independent. In 1817, he led his troops over the Andes Mountain into Chile, facing extreme challenges along the way. Despite losing many pack of animals, soldiers to harsh conditions, he suppressed Spanish forces and won the Battle of Chacabuco. The Battle of Chacabuco, it is a Latin American Wars of Independence victory won by South American patriots over Spanish royalists of North Santiago, Chile. It began the expulsion of the Spaniards from Chile following the next year at the Battle of Maipo. This battle gave independence for Chile's under the Spanish rule. After liberating Chile, San Martin moved on to Peru but realized he could not finish the job alone. He welcomed Simon Bolivar, help, and left South America. Bolivar then defeated the last significant Spanish army in 1824. By then, many South American countries gained independence, but despite his achievements, Bolivar became pessimistic about the future of South America. He saw the challenges of governing such a vast and diverse region and worried about the rise of future tyrants. Bolivar died in 1830, feeling uncertain about the future of the continent he fought so hard to liberate. In early 1820, after Latin American countries won their independence, a new problem arose. Some European countries wanted to send soldiers to bring them back under Spanish control. However, Britain disagreed and wanted to work with the United States to protect Agustin de Iturbide. When Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821, there was uncertainty about what kind of government should have. Agustin de Iturbide, a Mexican military leader, saw an opportunity to become a leader himself. He formed an alliance with the rebel leader Vicente Guerrero, and together they created a plan of Iguala, which called for Mexico to be an independent empire by a monarch. Iturbide then proclaimed himself Emperor Augustine I of Mexico in 1822. However, his rule was short-lived due to several factors. He faced opposition from various groups who wanted different forms of government, and he struggled to maintain control over the country. Additionally, he made unpopular decisions such as dissolving the Mexican Congress. Ultimately, Iturbide's reign ended in 1823 when he was forced to abdicate the throne and go to exile. Mexico then became a republic, and Iturbide's brief stint as emperor is remembered as a turbulent period in Mexican history. Brazil. Imagine Brazil and Portugal like two siblings. Brazil was like the younger siblings who grew up under the career of Portugal, its older siblings. But Brazil grew. It wanted more freedom to make, to make its own decision. In 1822, Brazil gained independence from Portugal after the series of events. But when Brazil gained independence from Portugal, it is largely different from other Latin countries because they used diplomatic negotiation to have the independence, not like other Latin American countries, they fought. The Monroe Doctrine, declared by President James Monroe in early 1820s, emerged as a pivotal moment in shaping relationship between the United States and Latin America. During this time, Latin America's state faced the looming threat of European powers aiming to restore Spanish control in the region. While Britain proposed joint action with the United States against European interference, President Monroe opted for unilateral action, announcing the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. This doctrine served as a bold assertion of American interests in the Western Hemisphere. It guaranteed the independence of Latin American nations and firmly warned against any further European intervention in the Americas. This formidable British Navy also played a significant role in deterring. While initially a unilateral statement by the United States, the Monroe Doctrine evolved into the cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy towards Latin America. Over time, it deeply influenced diplomatic relationships between the United States and Latin America countries. It has been frequently invoked by the U.S. to justify its involvement in the region, yet it has also served as a rallying point of Latin American nations seeking to resist external interference in their affairs. So Monroe Doctrine is like a shield protecting Latin America from any potential inventions. The difficulties of national building. Between 1830 and 1870, the new countries in Latin America faced big problems. They had just become independent but had resulted in staggering loss of population, property, and livestock in the fights for freedom. Even though the United States said Europe should interfere, Latin American countries still worried about it. This nation also argued about where the borders should be. On top of that, their transportation and communication system are not good. This made it hard for everyone to feel like they belong to one big country. Instead, people felt more connected to their own region, making it tough to work together as a nation. So they experienced political difficulties. The new nation of Latin America established republican governments, but they had no experience in ruling themselves. Due to insecurities prevalent after independence, strong leaders known as Cuauhtelos were powerful leaders who came to control parts of Latin America after it gained independence from colonial rule. They were often tough rulers who held a lot of control over politics, the military, and money. These leaders usually become important during times when there was a lot of chaos and uncertainty. This played big roles in shaping how newly independent countries were run. In the chaos following independence, Latin American countries struggled to find stable leadership. Enter the Cuauhtelos strong leaders who emerged to fill the void. They came in different types. Some aimed to modernize and strengthen the state, while others caused chaos and mismanaged resources. Cuauhtelos had various supporters, including the church and rural elites, and the military. Many were former military leaders themselves. Some Cuauhtelos like Rosas in Argentina and Carrera in Guatemala promised radical change, appealing to the masses. Rosas defended Argentine interests while Carrera supported native culture and land redistribution, but both faced opposition from elites who wanted to maintain their power. When one Cuauhtelo succeeded another, it often meant shifts in policy. Parias in Guatemala, for example, favored the elites and pushed for copper production, displacing indigenous communities. Overall, the era of Cuauhtelos was marked by a power struggle, social unrest, and changing priorities. After gaining independence, Latin America still relied heavily on foreign economic influence, particularly from Great Britain. British merchants flooded the region, while British investors heavily funded industry like mining. Latin America became a key source of raw materials and food for Europe and United States, leading to surge in exports such as wheat, tobacco, wool, sugar, coffee, and hides. However, this export-oriented economy meant importing more finished goods, particularly textile, which caused decline in local industrial production. Thus, despite political independence, Latin America remained economically dominated by foreigners, perpetuating a cycle of dependency on foreign markets and industry. In the new countries of Latin America, rich landowners were still in charge even after they became independent. These landowners owned huge estates, which were like big farms, and they were really important for the economy and society. Even more land was given to them after independence, thanks to the government selling church and public lands. For example, in Mexico, one family had 16 million acres of land by 1848. But here's the thing, these big estates were often too large to be farmed properly. So even though the rich owners had lots of land, they did not always know how to use it well. Having lots of land meant you were rich and powerful, and the rich landowners were in charge of everything. They made rules and controlled the courts. They also made sure that poor people had to work for them, usually for very little pay. As the poor people didn't have their own land to grow food, they had to rely on the rich for work, and they often lived in poverty. While the rich got richer, the poor didn't see much improvement in their lives. These rich landowners focused on growing crops like coffee to sell for profit instead of growing food for the people. So even though Latin America became independent politically, things didn't change much for most people. The wealthy stayed wealthy, while the poor stayed poor, and life was tough for those at the bottom. Conflicts between the church and state in the new nation of Latin America. So, after gaining independence, the Catholic Church had a lot of powers because it owned a ton of land and had a lot of money. Some priests even got involved in new government and had a big say in how things were run. But not everyone agreed on how much power the church should have. Some people called liberals thought the church should have less power in politics. And the other side, conservative, wanted to keep the church just as powerful as before. This difference of opinion even led to civil war in Mexico, called the War of Reform. It was a big fight between the government, which wanted less church power, and the Catholic clergy and military, who wanted to keep things the same. In 1870, Latin America started economic boom. So they were exporting things like beef from Argentina, coffee from Brazil, and copper from Chile, like never before. This brought in a ton of money, mostly from Europe. So products exported to Britain and US were beef, coffee, copper, and etc. Exchange and it is exchanged for textile, machines, luxury goods, and etc. With all this money flowing in, foreign investors, mainly from Britain, started investing in Latin America to build railways, mines, and utilities, making even more money. And with all of this economic growth came new factories in the big cities. Buenos Aires, for example, turned from a small town into a bustling city with millions of people. This changed how people live and work. Now let's talk about society. The rich folks or people or elites got even richer, so they invest in modernizing their business and living in luxury. So they built fancy houses, sent their kids to study abroad, and enjoy the good life. But there was also some growth in middle class. These were professionals like lawyers, merchants, and teachers who wanted to climb the social ladder. They looked up to the United States and wanted more say in politics and better opportunities. Meanwhile, as factories sprung up, so did the working class. They formed labor unions to fight for better rights and wages. But the elites made sure to keep them in check. Strikes and protests became common as workers demanded fair treatment. So in summary, Latin America was in fire economic or experienced economic boom with new industries and cities popping up everywhere. But while the rich get richer, the middle class grow a bit, and the working class fought or fight for better conditions. So this changes set the stage for the Latin America we know today. Alright, so let's talk about how things changed politically in Latin America in 1870. So big landowners get more involved in running the countries in places like Argentina and Chile. So these rich landowners controlled everything, even though they made up rules like those in the US and Europe. They made sure only certain people could vote so they could stay in charge or stay in power. Some countries even had dictators who helped out the rich landowners. In Mexico, there was this guy named Jose de la Cruz Porfirio Diaz who ruled for a long time, from 1876 to 1910. He set up a government that liked to keep things conservative and in control. With help from the army, rich foreigners, big landowners, and Catholic Church. But eventually people wanted change, and that's when the revolution in 1910 happened. Under Diaz, life got worse from the working class, and almost everyone in rural areas did not own any land, while a small group of families owned almost everything. When a guy named Francisco Montero kicked Diaz out, it started a bigger revolution. Another guy named Emiliano Zapata led the charge for giving land back to the poor people. This whole revolution really messed up Mexico's economy. Then, in 1917, they made a new constitution, which made the president really powerful, started giving land back to the people, put limits on foreign investors, and tried to make things better for workers. The revolution also made people in Mexico feel really proud of their country. Artists and smart people wanted to show off what made what made Mexico special, especially in its history with indigenous people. Meanwhile, around this time, the United States was getting stronger and started poking its nose into Latin America's business. After the Spanish American War in 1898, the US started getting involved in places like Cuba and Puerto Rico. They also started investing a lot of money in Latin America and sending soldiers to protect their interests. That was the history of Latin America. So the story of Latin America is one of the change, shaped by both struggle and hope before they gained independence. There were revolutions and afterwards making challenges to face. The Enlightenment, a time of new ideas and thinking, played a big part. People started questioning the old ways and demanding more rights. This led to revolution and fight for independence. But even after independence, there were struggles. Many faced opposition, unfair treatment, and tough times. Yet, through it all, people never give up. They keep pushing for better lives and more freedom. Today, Latin America is a testament to the strengths of its people. We've overcome so much and continue to strive for a brighter future. This journey, the enlightenment, and the fight against opposition have been guiding lights, showing the way forward towards a better tomorrow.